The next reflection line we're going to look at is called y equals x. Okay, this is not horizontal or vertical, it's actually diagonal. And if you look at what it looks like here, and this is just something you're going to have to kind of memorize here, is that it's a diagonal line that goes through 0, and then it just goes 1 every time. So it's like over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1. It just goes a diagonal through right here. So 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, and so on, and same thing the other way. Negative 1, negative 1, negative 2, negative 2, negative 3, negative 3. This is our reflection line right here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reflect over this line. Now, this is actually pretty difficult to actually just do, but I'm going to kind of fill you in on what the pattern is for this here. So let's say I make a rectangle here. Let's go here, here, and here. Okay, this is going to be my rectangle. Now, if I reflect this over this line, it's going to be somewhere in down here somewhere. Okay, but here's the easy way to do this. The rule, if you have y equals x, is that you are just going to, and this is a great piece of advice to write down, just flip the x and y coordinates. Flip the x and the y coordinates. Now here's what I mean. If we come to this point right here, this point is 2, 6. So on the other side is going to be the exact opposite of this, 6, 2, flipping the coordinates. So 6, 2, that one's going to be right there, okay? And that would be, I'll just put a 1 beside that one and a 1 beside that one. Okay? Now this one will be our number 2, and this one is 2, 10. Again, y equals x, flip the coordinates. 10, 2. 10, 2. That would be our number 2 right there. Our number 3, looks like that's going to be 4, 10. Y equals x tells us to flip the coordinates. So instead of 4, 10, it's going to be 10, 4. That's going to be our 3. And then our last one, I'm pretty sure you could probably fill this in here. It should just go right there to complete our rectangle. There is our rectangle. It's a mirror image over this line. And it may be kind of hard to tell, but if you tilt your computer a little bit, you'll be able to tell that it is a mirror image over that. So that is the y equals x. Just flip the x and the y coordinates. Now here's our other kind of imaginary line that you're going to have to draw in here. This is our y equals negative x line. And this is exactly the opposite. Remember, our y equals x line went this direction through here. Okay? It's going to be going the other direction through 0. So for instance, it's going to be negative 1, 1, negative 2, 2, negative 3, 3, negative 4, 4. And down here it'd be like 1, negative 1, 2, negative 2, 3, negative 3. It's going the exact opposite direction of what we did before. And here's your little hint for this one, because this is pretty tough to visualize. I mean, you might be able to do it, but here is the common rule, or the common idea that you'd probably want to use for this one. This one, you are going to still flip the coordinates. So that's the same. Here's what's different. You are going to do opposite signs. And what I mean by opposite signs is, if it starts out being positive, now you're going to be making it negative. If it starts out being negative, you are going to make it be positive. Okay? So let's kind of run through this and see what it looks like here. Okay? So let's say I start my shape here. And let's say I do just something simple here. Nice triangle there. Okay. And again, we are reflecting this over, And this where I should be using the lines, but this works a lot better when you can actually tell. But I think you can tell that's an isosceles triangle. Again, we're going to reflect y equals negative x here, and here's our kind of rules that we're using. So let's start with the very first point. We'll start with this one right here and label that 1. Okay, that point looks like it's negative 1 and then negative 7. Negative 1, negative 7. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, and sometimes it's nice to write this one up here just so you know what you're doing here. So my point number 1 is I'm going to flip the signs. Flip the coordinates. So instead of negative 1, negative 7, it's going to be negative 7, negative 1. Okay, that's what it would have been if this was just y equals x. But now we have that added step where we do the opposite signs. Okay, so instead of being negative 7, negative 1, the opposite of negative 7 would be positive 7. The opposite of negative 1 is going to be positive 1. So we'd want to put that on there, and we're going to want 7 and 1. Okay? There's our point 1 right there. Our point 2, it's 5. Looks like 5 and negative 8. 5, negative 8. Okay? So my point 2 is 5, negative 8. So first off, I'm going to flip the coordinates. So I'm going to go negative 8 and then 5. But again, since this is not the y equals x, it's y equals negative x, we have to do the opposite sign. So this turns into positive 8, while this turns into negative 5. Okay, so I'm going to go positive 8, and then I'm going to go negative 5, which is going to be right there. Okay, positive 8, negative 5, that's going to be my point 2. And then my point 3 is right here, which looks to be 2 and negative 6. 2 and negative 6. So all I need to do here is I'm going to want to flip those signs around so it's negative 6 and 2. And then since it's y equals negative x, I'm going to want to change the symbols or change the signs, do the opposite. So instead of negative 6, that's now positive 6. Instead of positive 2, it's now negative 2. So we'll go positive 6, negative 2. There's my point 3. Now if I connect my lines, that is that shape reflected over the y equals negative x line. Okay? So again, the difference between these two, if it's y equals x, remember the line goes like this through 0, okay, and it just goes up every 1, so it's pretty easy to draw the line on here, and all we do is flip the x and the y coordinates. When I get to this one, y equals negative x, the line is going the opposite way. So it's going through 0 still, but going the opposite direction where it just keeps going up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. And then for the coordinates, we still flip the coordinates, but you've got to do the opposite sign. All right, last example before we do practice here. Okay, one of the toughest things is when you've got an overlapping shape. Okay, over lines. So let's say I wanted to reflect this over the y-axis. Okay, here's the y-axis. I've got stuff on both sides, and this confuses people. But don't let it confuse people. If you have to use a different pen color or use something, it's not difficult. You just have to remember the same distance apart from each side. So we'll start with this one right here, point 1. Okay, and I'll draw this in red because that's our trapezoid. Okay, so point 1 is 1, 2, 3, 4 away. Okay, so on the other side I got to make it 4 away. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yep, the shapes are kind of going to be on top of each other, but that's okay. If you keep things straight, you'll be okay. There's point 2. Okay, and again, that was also the point 1. That's that reflected over point 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's my point 2. Okay, now here's my point 3. 2 away and 2 away, so those are going to totally overlap. And that was also my point 4. 1, 2, and 1, 2. Those are totally going to overlap. So when I draw this shape now, you'll notice that it does overlap quite a bit. Let's see, 1 and there we go. So they're the mirror images now of each other, and it seems confusing, but it doesn't have to be, as long as you do the same sides or the same distance away from that reflection line.